to the Who Dat Nation. Welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. How are we doing out there, Who Dat Nation? I'm hopping in today to discuss something that just plagued me when I heard about it. Now, I'm not mad at what took place per se, but it makes me question what is going on with the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints have made some changes to their coaching staff so far this offseason, in this shortened offseason thus far. We're only, about a month into the offseason, and they made some changes. And after a 7-10 season, you can expect some change to come. My big bugaboo is where the change is coming. I'm confused. I'm very, very confused. And to be quite honest, concerned. Just a couple of weeks ago, we got the news, or maybe a week ago, we got the news that co-defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen accepted the job of defensive coordinator. Nope, not co, but defensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons, right? All right. It didn't really bother me that much because he was more in charge of the defensive line. And you can make an argument that the defensive line was the weakest part of that defense last season. So I'm not hating on that. Even if it was a good defensive line, he's a real good defensive coordinator. Look, it happens. He took a better job. He did what was best for him and his family. Cool. I'm not mad at that. A few days later. Now, at this point, I'm like, okay, Chris Rashad, he's the other co-defensive coordinator. All right, we're going to knock that co off and make him defensive coordinator. Chris Rashad is an outstanding coach. I went to training camp one of the days this past off season, and I'm looking at him coach up that defensive backfield, right? And he was coaching him, man. He was yelling, screaming at him, getting in line, and they were scratching. They weren't like they were running plays. They were just scratching. And he was really particular. And I really admired that because, you need that as a coach, you from a coach rather. You want him to get in your behinds, Well, they decided to part ways with Chris Rashad. Oh, so we're not going to have a defensive coordinator. Like, what is going on? And then uh, a couple of days later, we have Corey Robinson, who was the assistant defensive backs coach. Now, you can make an argument that that was the strongest part of the defense. He was let go. Not only was he let go, it wasn't the fact that he was let go, it was how he was let go. He was at the Senior Bowl scouting. He was still working for the Saints and was let go. Well, his contract expired, and I think that that was something strategic by him. He was ready to go at that point, and quite frankly, I don't blame him. And so he left. So basically the whole defensive coaching staff is gone. All right, we fast forward. The Saints made a hire, and they hired their new defensive coordinator, and it is Joe Woods. Joe Woods, just this past season, he was the defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. And I know of Joe Woods. He's been on several coaching staffs. He's been the defensive coordinator of a few teams. But just going by last season, the Cleveland Browns defense was ranked 14th in the league overall. And that's not too shabby. That's above average. So there's some hope there. And which leads me to the point, I'm not really mad at the hire, like I said earlier. I'm not mad at the hire. To go over his career, he started off as a defensive backs coach in Tampa, I think in 2004. Then he went on to be assistant defensive coordinator over in Minnesota under Mike Tomlin, believe it or not, when Mike Tomlin was the defensive coordinator there. And then he got hired by the Oakland Raiders. They were Oakland at the time, by none other than their head coach, Dennis Allen. And that was his first defensive coordinator job. You know, he worked with the he worked with the defensive backs. And he went from there to the Denver Broncos, where he had his most success. The Denver Broncos defense was ranked third in the NFL while he was there. It was a powerhouse defense. Now, he wasn't the defensive coordinator. He was on that staff. He was an assistant under Wade Phillips. And I believe they won a Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl ring on that staff when they won Super Bowl 50. Yeah, it was Super Bowl 50. And he won that job. He later on, after that, he moved on to the San Francisco 49ers, where he was the defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. And then he went to Cleveland just I think in 2020. And the defense has been pretty good. Now, granted, they had some really good talented players there, just like you have here. So once again, not mad at the hire. Really not. This brother has been around for a while. He's been under some real good coaches. Wade Phillips is one of the best defensive coordinators of the past 20 years. He was under Mike Tomlin. He was under not Tony. Was it Tony Dungy? It was I think it was Tony Dungy. But he's been under some really good defensive-minded coaches. So I'm not mad at that. I'm really not. And then to shore up that defense, the Saints hired Todd Graham, who he's a veteran coach, and he was one of the top candidates to be the defensive coordinator at Alabama this season. He went on the interview with Nick Saban and everything. He was expected to get the job, but the Saints scooped in and hired him to be their I guess defensive line coach, kind of replacing Ryan Nielsen, which is fine. I don't know much about Todd Graham. I know he's highly revered. According for what I read, he is one of the best defensive-minded coaches in college football. So, hey, I'm once again, good hire. Good hire. Here's my problem. The defense wasn't the problem. That wasn't your problem last year. I don't understand. And we sit here right now. Pete Carmichael's still there. Everybody on that offensive staff is still there. I think other than the running game coordinator, that was the first head that was chopped when the season ended. And that was the only one up to that point, as far as the offense is concerned. The Saints offense ranked 28th in the league last year. 28th. There's only 32 teams in the league, in case you didn't realize that. The Saints defense ranked 5th in the league. Why did the defensive coaches get fired or get let go, or we decided to move on from this staff? Yet the offensive coaching staff is still there when you was near the bottom in the league as an offense. This is what the defense did all last season. Let's go through every game. And this will kind of put things in perspective. Let's start off in week 1, okay? The Saints defense gave up 416 yards against the Atlanta Falcons in week 1. Pitiful. That's the most yards they've given up the entire season. And the crazy part is the Saints won that game. Saints turned the ball over once in that game. And I want you to keep note of every number that I throw out here because it's important. We move on to week 2. In week 2, the Saints took on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we lost that game. The Saints defense gave up 260 yards. The Saints turned the ball over 3 times. Five. 5 times. 5. We lost the game. In week 3, the Saints took on the Carolina Panthers. And against Baker Mayfield, the Saints defense only gave up 293 yards. The Saints turned the ball over 3 times. In week 4, the Saints defense gave up 344 yards in a loss against the Minnesota Vikings in London. Saints turned the ball over twice. In week 5, Saints defense gave up 396 yards to the Seattle Seahawks. We won that game, despite the fact the Saints turned the ball over twice. Next game, Saints took on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Saints defense held the Bengals to 348 yards of offense. We didn't turn the ball over. I'm still scratching my head how we lost that game. I still don't understand how we lost that game. The following week, Saints took on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Saints defense gave up 326 yards in that game. Not too bad. Saints lost that game 42-34. Saints turned the ball over a grand total of 3 times. 2 interceptions that were pick six. The other interception was in the red zone, in the end zone, actually. So that's a 21-point swing right there. Has nothing to do with the defense. The following week, the Saints took on the Las Vegas Raiders. The defense held the Raiders to 186 yards in a blowout victory. They didn't turn the ball over. That was their best performance of the year. Granted, against the Raiders. Then we move on to Baltimore, a Monday night game. Against the Ravens, the Saints defense gave up 319 yards in a loss. They turned the ball over once. The offense turned the ball over once. Following week, the Saints took on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost. Saints defense gave up 379 yards of offense. Saints turned the ball over twice. Next week, against the Los Angeles Rams, Saints won that game 27-20. Saints defense gave up 336 yards of offense, no turnovers. We won the game. Are y'all starting to see a pattern here? Well, I'm going to keep going in case you don't. We played the San Francisco 49ers next. Saints defense gave up 317 yards of offense. Saints got blown out 13-0. Saints turned the ball over twice. Next week, in a rematch against Tampa Bay, Saints lost that game, giving up 350 yards of offense in a 17-16 loss to Tom Brady. We didn't turn the ball over, but it was an epic collapse in the fourth quarter when the Saints couldn't convert a third down to save their life all of a sudden. The following week, the Saints played Atlanta Falcons for the second time. Saints get a victory here. Saints defense gave up 320 yards of offense and turned the ball over once. They played Cleveland in a baby ice bowl on Christmas Eve, and they won that game. Saints defense gave up 249 yards of offense in a 17-10 victory against Cleveland. They turned the ball over one time. The following week, the Saints took on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are playing this Sunday in the Super Bowl, mind you. Saints won that game. The Saints defense only allowed 313 yards of offense. Now, you can make the argument Jalen Hurts didn't play. Facts. But it is what it is. Not our fault. Not our problem. But the Saints won that game. And Saints offense did turn the ball over once. And in the season ender, Saints lost to the Carolina Panthers by a score of 10-7. Saints defense only allowed 203 yards of offense. And Saints offense had one turnover. And also to be noted in that game, Sam Darnold only completed 5 passes in that game. Defense was not the issue. Why was there a complete overhaul on this defense? And I'm going to continue to say, I'm not mad at the hires. I'm not mad at the new guys they brought in here because they seem to be comparable guys, going by what I read, going by what I know about Joe Woods and the defenses he's been a part of. Todd Graham, I don't know much about him, but he's highly sought after. Apparently, there must be something to this. If you was going to overhaul the coaching staff, overhaul it all. If he was going to get rid of, go a new direction on defense, go a new direction on offense. Your offense was horrible. You was the 29th ranked offense in the league. That lets me know there has to be a change on offense. I mean, this isn't rocket science. I don't understand why the defense had to suffer. And the defense may come out next season and be the top ranked defense in the league, completely shutting down offenses next season. Fine, that's fine. But if your offense isn't generating any points like this team, like this past offense was, it's all for nothing. Saints defense didn't allow a game over 30 points. That is amazing to me. In a league right now where there's nothing but high-powered offenses who score at will. And the Saints defense did not allow a 30-point game. Well, they did once. I think that was Seattle. They allowed 32 points against Seattle. But at that time of the season, Seattle was hot. Geno Smith was on fire the early part of this season. I was scared for that game. And honestly, it could have been worse because DJ Metcalf dropped like 2 touchdowns. He flat out dropped them. And honestly, we escaped that game. That was from the grace of God that we won that game. But other than that, Saints defense came to play every game. Yeah, you had some 400 yards games from opposing offensives. Close to 400 yards. I think Atlanta had 416. Like I said, Seattle had 396. That's it. Well, not Baltimore. The Bengals had 350. Yeah, that's understandable. Those are high-powered offenses. But not so much Atlanta. But but Cincinnati is. Yeah, I'm just real upset. I'm real upset that Chris Richard is gone. That's my biggest thing. Because I have a lot of respect for Chris Richard, and I don't know where he goes from here. Now we have another bugaboo. Now I didn't bring up the fact that Sean Payton. I did a whole show on that. Sean Payton is the new coach of the Denver Broncos. Good for him. And but I think a lot of these coaches, because I think there's more. There's going to be more coaches to move because they're going to go and work with Sean. I can see a Chris Richard going and working with Sean Payton. I can see Pete Carmichael jumping ship and going work for Sean Payton. He's already taken one coach. That will be Zach Strief, who was our assistant offensive line coach last season. Now he's moved over to Denver to be their offensive line coach. And I can see a lot more changes, So I hope, I hope they're not finished. I really do. Man, this team underachieved at a cellular level last season. It was embarrassing watching the New Orleans Saints play football in 2022. Honest to God, it was embarrassing. And Dennis Allen should be ashamed of himself. Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson should be ashamed of themselves. This is ridiculous, man. He should be gone. I mean, Dennis Allen should be gone. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel, because with Dennis Allen making these moves, with Dennis Allen basically turning this team into his own, making the coaching staff his own. This isn't Sean Payton's guys. This will be his guys. All this means next season, if we turn out a 7-10, even a 8-9, or we miss the playoffs, winning the division and stuff like that. If we underachieve next year, it's all on Dennis. Because here's the thing. I'm pretty sure he probably went in there at the end of the season, give his little exit interview with Mickey Loomis and all them. Look, these are the guys you stuck me with. These are, self-preservation, bro. Self-preservation is a mug. And I'm pretty sure he went in there and poo-pooed on all them coaches. Like, look, these are Sean Payton guys. If I was allowed to get my guys in here and put in my system, we can do something. And they bought it. But here's the problem, Mickey. Here's the problem. These are the same guys he had when he was the defensive coordinator. So that had nothing to do with Sean Payton. These were your guys. Bruh. I'm happy that he got his, there's no more excuses now. I don't want to hear about excuses. I don't want to hear it. These were your guys. This is your system now, with the exception of this offense, because I still don't understand what's going on there. But let's wait and see what takes place there. But yeah, that's what I just wanted to jump in and talk about this today. I had to vent because I quite honestly, I don't understand these moves. I don't understand them. Why would you completely overhaul your offense? I mean, your defense, and leave your offense like your offense was the 5th ranked. You would think it was opposite. If it was opposite, you wouldn't have heard my mouth. You wouldn't have heard a peep out of Kevin Reed today. But the fact that the defense was the 5th ranked defense in the league, in the entire NFL, out of 32 teams, the Saints were 5th in total defense. But all their coaches get fired. Whereas the Saints offense is 28th, near the bottom of the league, and they still have a job. Make it make sense, people. Am I overreacting? Am I just reading into this too much? Tell me, let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. Look me up on Twitter at KB Radio Network, and on other social media platforms, just look up the KB Radio Network. Don't forget, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing the show. And also on YouTube, don't forget to swing over there and hit the subscribe button as well. Just look up the KB Radio Network. Yeah, I just wanted to pop in today. I just wanted to pop in and because this really bothered me. It rubbed me the wrong way. I just don't agree with this, man. I honestly don't. I felt if you're going to do this, do it everybody. I mean, just clean house. Clean house. Not so much Dennis Allen. Fine. Dennis Allen, fire all the coaches. Bring in a new staff. Okay, you started with the defense. Maybe I jumped the gun. Maybe this was the week we're going to work on defense. Next week we're going to work on offense. Maybe I jumped the gun. And when he does that, I'll hop back on and we'll have another discussion. But I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening. We shall see. We'll see. All right, everybody. I just wanted to chime in. Plus, I wanted to keep the Dome Patrol podcast alive and well in all of your hearts and minds, because We have a long off season to go, and quite frankly, there's a lot going on in the New Orleans Saints locker room, in the offices over there on airline. I know that I would I would love to just take the next few months off until the season pops off, but this 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 organization not gonna let me. It's not gonna let me, man. They're gonna do some stuff that's just gonna make you scratch your head and be like, "What is going on?" And I don't know, but let's just hope and pray the best is yet to come. Everybody, in case I don't speak to you in the next couple of weeks, I want you all to have a fun, safe Mardi Gras. Catch some beads for me. Enjoy yourselves and don't party too hard, you know. I don't want to read about some of y'all on the news. So just have fun, but have it in moderations, if you will. But if anything else pops off before then, I would definitely be popping back up here on the Dome Patrol podcast. Can't wait to speak to you again. Once again, happy Mardi Gras to everybody. And until we speak again, I'm going to be screaming from the mountaintops, who that?